Welcome to the Big Booth, recorded at Stumptown Station, Matthews, North Carolina, USA. I need to do the YMCA thing with that one time.
There you go.
My name is Brian Lewis. I'll be your host for another few minutes of craft cocktails, and appreciate you guys tuning in, whether you're listening via the podcast or you're watching us on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. We appreciate you tuning in. Now, this week, we're celebrating Cinco de Mayo. It is exciting shit, let me tell you. But first, before we get into that, let me introduce my co-host. He can resist anything except temptation. He enjoys long walks, long romantic walks to the fridge. He's also the guy you call when you want to grab something off the top shelf and you don't want to use a ladder because, trust me, I'm not allowed to use ladders anymore. That's a different story. He's the co-owner of Stumptown Station, master mixologist, and my drinking buddy, Brandon Mills. How you doing,
Hello.
buddy?
I'm doing good, bud. Doing good.
Yeah. So on this podcast, we've already done a few cocktail spotlights. We've done the mixology classes, the basics for folks to be able to learn the basics of making great cocktails. And we've got some other ideas that we've talked about for future episodes of the Big Booth. We're going to bring in some of our musicians as a guest sometime, and bring those guys on and let them play for you. We're also going to feature some of our local distillers around the area. So Ollie, Robbie, we're still coming for you. Look out for that. Boys. But we're also going to spotlight some of our members. So Stumptown Station is all about the guests, and there's so many great stories that both Brandon and I hear when we're hanging out, with our guests and with our regulars. And so this is our first member spotlight that's happening on the podcast where we bring in a guest to help us out. So we're bringing in our guest member. Welcome aboard, Quinton Hill. How you doing, buddy?
We've got him.
You guys are going to be sharing the mic. Yep. So yeah, we'll keep scooting that one back and forth. So gentlemen, Cinco de Mayo, right? A lot of folks have heard of Cinco de Mayo, and I actually had somebody go, well, isn't that Mexican Independence Day? No. That's September 16th. That's a huge holiday in Mexico. Cinco de Mayo, from what I hear, not as big of a holiday in Mexico. But it's except for this one town. So it celebrates a victory over the French at the Battle of Puebla. So imagine that, the French surrendered. But it's a national holiday down south of the border. It still is a national holiday, and I assume banks are closed and whatever else, the same thing they do for national holidays here. But it's a much bigger deal in the U.S. So I compare Cinco de Mayo to Valentine's Day. So like Valentine's Day, you've got, chocolate industry and the flower industry and the greeting card industry all are booms on on Valentine's Day. So that's what that holiday is for. So Cinco de Mayo is kind of for the bar industry, is what I figured. Specifically tequila. So today we're going to switch our focus to the magical Mexican firewater that is tequila. And that's what we're talking about today. So Brandon here is the master mixologist. He's got the broad knowledge of everything boozy. And Quinton here is our tequila expert, which is why we invited Quinton to come with us today. So we're going to talk a little bit about tequila. We can start out and we'll let you lead off. So we're Quinton. I'm pointing at Quinton on the camera for the people that are listening. So the history of tequila. Give us a little bit of background on tequila.
Yeah, just a brief background.
And then get right up in there. There we go.
So just a little brief background. Like tequila was born with the Aztec civilization back in 1000 BC. And so that's how tequila got started, just a brief overview. And really didn't start getting distilled until the Spanish invaded the Aztec civilization, where they actually started distilling it. Mm-hmm. So that's how the distillery process of making tequila got started. Okay. So when the Spanish... and then it really didn't get commercialized till about the 1700s by the Salzo brothers and Jose Cuervo. In about 1758, so
national damn hero, that dude.
Right? So that's like a brief overview of like tequila.
Okay,
how we got started.
That's awesome. So then we're going out Cinco de Mayo, mm-hmm. and what cocktails? So we'll switch this one back to Brandon because this one's gonna be good. If I'm going out for Cinco de Mayo and I want to try some tequila, and obviously margarita is going to be the most popular one.
Absolutely.
But what are some other cocktails that if you're going to your local bar, say Stumptown Station, Matthews, North Carolina, and you're going out to try, you want to try some tequila drink for Cinco de Mayo, get into the spirit. What kind of cocktails would we want to order?
Some of the more popular ones, obviously you can do margaritas all day, right? You can do flavors in your margaritas. You can do all sorts of different switchovers with things. You can do ginger mint and all of those kind of cool flavors. One of my favorite things about tequila is that you can sub it out for pretty much any other spirit. So you can do, tequila mules. Those are fantastic. But then you have things, Bloody Marias, instead of a Bloody Mary, same kind of thing.
Tequila in with that.
Yeah, you can make martinis with tequila are absolutely spectacular because you get those wonderful sort of fruity notes and some of the softer
I'm
tequila.
Getting thirsty over here.
Yeah, sorry. So you can get some of those, softer notes that you get out of some of the Blanco tequilas and some of the more, they call them more feminine quality tequilas. Mm-hmm. So you get all sorts of different things. Now you also have tequila specific cocktails like the Palomas. Tequila Sunrise is actually a great cocktail as well. A lot of people think of tequila and lime all the time, right? Mm-hmm. a lot of tequilas are actually very spectacular when served with orange of some type.
Really?
Yeah. So even
right.
actually, Quinton and I were just talking a little bit ago about mezcals. And mezcal is just another sort of form of tequila, just made outside of Tequila, Mexico. But they usually have a very smoky taste to them. So what's great about that is you pair that with just neat or on the rocks, pair it with an orange slice, and it makes a fantastic fruit-forward drink that's not even necessarily a cocktail. Right. And one of the things that we had actually discussed, Quinton and I had actually discussed, was a lot of really good tequilas are best served either neat or on the rocks, chilled.
Right.
So because it's such a soft spirit that you really want to make sure you get all those little tiny notes that are there.
Right.
So you want to kind of explore that. So a lot of people are used to drinking mixto tequila, which is what we know as sort of it's a young tequila that is added in caramel coloring or oak flavoring or something like that.
Okay.
And it's the stuff that gives you hangovers. It's the things that when you're drinking a mixto tequila that, think of the Jose Cuervo that you drank in college.
I was just going to say, yeah, so this is the Daytona Beach tequila.
Yeah, exactly,
Okay, gotcha.
exactly, yeah.
All right.
And that's the kind of stuff that ends up giving you a hangover, the additives and things like that, sugars and all that. So the best thing that I think I would advise it, as well as, we had that conversation, is that try your tequila, and I say this in almost every episode.
Right.
Try it first.
Right.
See what you like, and then kind of build
And then
from
create from it. And you can go back and do some of the 4 parts to be able to add your different things.
Yeah.
If you want to try lime, you want to try orange. Okay, now you've got your sweet, or your citrus. So now add a little bit of sour, or add something like that, and then
a lot
start
of a lot of earth tones, like earthy notes, gingers, and roots and things like
that.
that.
So don't go grab a handful of dirt.
Yeah.
Now.
That's more of a wine tasting thing, Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. Oh, it tastes like the inside of a boot. Oh, that's great.
Need some earth tones. Let me
Yeah.
drop my flip flop in there.
Like, we're back to Daytona Beach now.
Yeah, we are.
But yeah, I mean those kind of softer fruity notes or earthy notes are really, really great to put with tequila.
Okay.
So, and that's that's how you just kind of start to develop the palate that you like and move forward with the cocktail. So I would obviously suggest, if you want to branch out, go to like a Paloma or something that's a designed cocktail.
Right.
But always try that first. Find a tequila that you really love, and then start to build from there.
Okay, so let me hand this back over to Quinton for a minute, because you were telling me a story, and this is how this idea of doing a member spotlight, and hey, dude, come on to the podcast, because you were telling me a story. You actually got to go to Mexico and visit one of the plants and learn all about how it's made. So now we'd like your book report on what you did last summer.
Absolutely. Yeah, so took a trip down to Jalisco. I was in Guadalajara, and then had taking private Uber down to Tequila, and on the way down to Tequila, there was a distillery called Tres Mujeres, and so stopped by there. It's off the side of the street, and I was just showing Brandon pictures of like all the agave plants, like on acres, agave plants just everywhere.
Wow.
They have it on the side of the road, things like that. And like a lot of times, like the government will let you plant there. Like if it's not on like a farm or anything, they'll kind of pick it up, but they know that that's a moneymaker. So they're, for agave, so they'll just leave it there. And going to there was like amazing, just seeing the process. I mean, the whole process of making tequila. So you have the agave plant that's, it usually takes about 7 years for it to mature, like for an agave plant to mature. And then you have a humidor. They dig it up, and then they chop that down. They chop all the leaves down.
Okay.
And it makes it looks like it's called a piña. So it looks like a pineapple. And then, so that's what they look at. They cut it in half, and they put it in these adobe like rooms with steam, and they cut it in half and they stack them, and then they put a door on it, and then they mud it down, and they steam them for about 2 days.
Okay.
Yeah. And so after that, they get it, and then they start mulching it down, and then that's how you get the agave sap from that, and then they go into the fermentation process. A lot of places that are really good would do a triple distilled fermentation, and their fermentation process is by the natural bacteria from the air. So a lot of times, all that natural bacteria from the air would actually come down into that fermentation process to eat the agave.
So they're not adding yeast like you do for beer or anything like that? Okay.
No. And then that was like the great part about it, because a lot of times when you see some of the a lot more commercialized tequilas, they're chemically enhancing it to keep up with production. and they're like, hey, we got to get this out because it's very, very popular. And then so they came with enhanced, and that's how you see like tequilas that are not as smooth, or they are you get drunk on them faster, like when you're drinking them. So that's that process. So it makes it appreciate like the actual drink, because it's like, yo,
because
like,
of everything that went into it.
Yeah. And it takes a while, and it's like, yo, this is actually really good. And that's how I started getting into it.
Okay.
Go down to the city of tequila, which was just amazing in itself. Like Jose Cuervo's down there, things like that. But the actual city and just being around the people, going to the mercados or the markets, was just amazing. So
that's
I
very
love that
cool.
process.
So that's why some of these tequilas are so rare, is because they don't do that production speeding up thing, and they're doing these the Adobe huts, and they're they may not be as big, so you can only do a certain amount. I mean, if it's 7 years for one plant to grow, then you're only going to get a little bit in a batch at whatever time. And
and then like that place Tres Mujeres, so you can't even get it in the U.S. because it's it's so small, and they take that process to age it. Like I was showing pictures of Brandon how they age it in their oak barrels, and it's like they put it underground, and it's there for if you do a repo, it's 1 to 3 years, and añejo is 5 to 7. Or I'm sorry, 3 to 5. And then extra añejo 5 to 7 years. So that process takes a long time, and so some of the really good tequilas are like you're not going to get them everywhere because they're not as the production's not as quickly. So,
And these pictures that Quinton's talking about, if you're listening to us on the podcast, if you're watching on YouTube, you just saw those pictures come up. So if you want to be able to see the pictures, go watch the podcast and watch the the behind the scenes thing, and you'll be able to see some of these pictures that Quinton's got on here that we just showed on the YouTube. So I'm getting a little thirsty. Oh wait, no, I was going to ask you. So you were telling me there was a couple of different stages. So they ferment it for a certain time, and it's this, and they do it a little bit longer. Tell me more about that.
As far as like the fermentation process, so they have it in the fermentation. It's in how it's distilled. Like they'll strain it out, and then they move it over to their second barrel, and then they'll strain it out and move it to their third. It's triple distilled, and that process is just the bacteria just refining it to the alcohol.
So wasn't there? I guess there was different styles. I think that you were talking about, where after it's a certain time, it's Blanco, and then
so Blanco is the first batch out of it being triple distilled. Blanco means silver. So it's that clear. So it's the first out, and I love that personally because I want to taste the first batch out being triple distilled, and then if it's smooth enough, that's where I want to go to. You have añejo, which is 1 to 3 years. And I'm sorry, reposado, 1 to 3 years, and whatever they decide, French oak barrel, American oak, and then so that's how you get that color. So you'll get that light brown color, and that's from the barrel,
from soaking it in from the barrel.
And you get more of a woody color or a taste through that, and it's a little bit smoother.
So that's your difference, and then your third one
añejo
is añejo,
and then that's 3 to 5 years. In French or American oak barrel, whatever they choose to use.
So it's been, the triple distilled, it was silver, and now it goes into the barrel, and however long it stays in the barrel will tell you whether it's reposado or añejo.
And then you have extra añejo, which is about 5 to 7 years.
Which is what Brandon calls me often. Extra añejo. All right, so let's...
And actually, I did want to add to that. So one of the things that I find fascinating about what you just said is that he starts out with Blanco tequila. And as tequila aficionados go, which is why we have Quinton here, as aficionados go, that is kind of the rule, is start with the Blanco so that you get the purest form of what the distiller was after. So that's the thing that they say, this is what I've made, it's wonderful, now let's enhance, right? So you add in bourbon barrels. I mean, that's a great celebration. A great celebration between American and Mexican distilleries is trading up barrels, and saying, hey, go ahead. This is what, we make Jack Daniels in this, or we make whatever your particular thing is, because they don't have the barrel restrictions. Now, it does have to be distilled at least twice. Tequila has to be distilled at least twice. But like he was saying, a lot of the really good ones go up to 3 times. But what's fascinating about what you were saying is that you enjoy Blancos is because I actually start with añejos. But I am a whiskey / bourbon drinker, primarily.
So you like the bourbon notes.
I like the flavors that are there, and then I work my way backwards. So if I find something that I'm like, oh, this is a really good tequila that I enjoy as an añejo, and then I work my way backwards down to the Blanco, And I find that fascinating that our palates have refined differently, but we kind of end up in sort of the same spot anyway.
Right.
Absolutely. And like you said, starting off with the Blanco and working your way up with the Repo and the Añejo and the Extra Añejo. And like I said, I want to start with the purest form, like you said.
Right.
What are they going after? What's the taste of it? How smooth it is. Sometimes you get a cheaper tequila and it's like, oh, you hear people, oh, it burns. It should not burn.
Okay.
It should not burn when you're drinking it.
All right.
One of the things I learned.
That's an important rule.
Yeah,
That's,
exactly. It shouldn't burn. One of the things I learned down in Mexico, what they talked about was, lime and salt. And that was glorified in the movies in like the 50s and the 60s when people were drinking. But when you think about it, like that's to take away the nasty taste from some of the cheaper tequilas, and that's why people do lime and salt. And then it gets glorified in the movies, and they're like, everybody's like, oh, I gotta have lime and salt.
Right.
You don't need lime and salt if you're drinking a really
So
good
really
tequila.
good straight up tequila, you don't need any kind of garnish.
Like Brandon said, neat or chilled.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right, now I really am getting thirsty. So yeah, we got sidetracked on those three things, but I remembered I wanted to hit that when we get it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little break. We're going to do the highlights for the week and talk about what's going to be going on this weekend, and then coming back. Now, normally during the podcast, we go to the bar and we make a few cocktails, but since there's three of us, and since we're going to be tasting tequila, we're just going to go to the bar and raid the bar to get some bottles and bring them back here to the big booth, and then we're going to try some. So here's your homework while the highlights reel is going on. You're going to go and pick your bottle of tequila and bring it back, and then we're going to do a little bit of show and tell. Y'all good with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool. So we're going to do that after the break. We'll be right back on the big booth by Stumptown Station. Hey, it's Brian from the Big Booth, and I have in my ham hands this week's events and updates and news for the first week of May 2022. Now, Wednesday, it's Star Wars Day, and Kevin's going to be here with trivia. I don't know what he's going to be doing or what he's got planned, but I'm going to guess he has questions about a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. May the 4th be with you. Thursday is Cinco de Mayo, or as we like to call it, National Tequila Day. So we're going to have tequila flights. We're going to have some other specials. You want to make sure you come in and check it out. On Friday, we got Todd Johnson. He's fresh in from his tour of the Gulf Coast, and he's going to be back in town on Friday night. Then we have a guy that's new to us on Saturday. He's from Waxhaw. His name's Jim Tierney. You want to be in here and check him out. He's great. And then we still have tickets available for Brooke McCarthy's show. It's called How to Be an Ethical Slut. We've done 3 sold-out shows at Stumptown Station so far, and we have one more date available, May 10th. Go to our website, and you'll be able to find out how to get tickets, stumptownstation.com. And hey, while you're there, check out the podcast. It's called The Big Booth by Stumptown Station. We'll see you there. And we're back on the Big Booth by Stumptown Station, your favorite podcast. And this week we're celebrating Cinco de Mayo. Now, normally in this part of the podcast, we go over to the bar. And to be honest, we did go over to the bar. And we went over and picked out some bottles of tequila. So the guys picked out their bottles of tequila. And the cool thing about the bottles you picked is it follows the taste we were talking about before. Whereas, Quinton, you said you like to start with the silvers and work your way up to the añejos, and Brandon was the other way around. You wanted to work backwards. So, Brandon, you picked an añejo, and Quinton, you've picked a blanco, right? Correct. So tell us about the one. This is show and tell. This is the fun part. This is where we get to drink.
So, Casa de Dragones, probably one of my favorites. I found this about a year and a half ago. Okay. And then, I'm kind of branching out. Like I've been like on Espolón, and like I've tried Clase de Azul and all those other ones. And I was like, let me try something different. Like, I'm going to go look. So I went, I lived back in California, and I was like looking. And so when I look at a bottle of tequila, I actually read, like, I want to look at the bottle. I want to read it. I want to smell it. So I read on the bottle where it's made. And that's what I look at. So a lot of times it'll tell you Hencho y Mexico. Right? Okay, right. A lot of times when they see Hencho made in Mexico, but then if you read it where it's actually distilled and bottled, a lot of times it's like shipped to the U.S. and it's like distilled and bottled in the U.S. So that's what I usually read when I pick up a bottle and I'm like want to try something new.
So if I'm in a liquor store and I'm looking for tequila, that's the first thing I want to look for is it was actually distilled in Mexico.
Correct. Yeah, and actually you'll see it like in some of the other bottles they'll say like distilled and bottled in Las Vegas or New York or things like that. So I always look at that. And then what's interesting about Casa de Dragones is like it's lot numbered. So they're actually individually numbered each bottle. Oh, wow. Yeah, and then they're signed off and approved on them. So I'm like,
oh, that's kind of cool.
All right, and the date.
That's like serial numbered baseball cards.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. And then so when I tried it, I was like, okay, let's go ahead and give it a try. And so, bought it, and I've probably about a year and a half I've been drinking this one. This is like, if I come in, I've been drinking it ever since, and which was interesting. So I moved here from California, like I said, and I first started coming in here a couple weeks ago, And I walk right in, and I can recognize the bottle. Anytime I come in, I'm like, yo, that's interesting, because I've been other places around in Matthews or in Charlotte, and their tequila selection is not really that high for me. So it's like Hornitos or Patron, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm good. And
the Daytona tequilas.
Yeah, exactly. The Daytona tequila. So I come here, I'm like, yeah, this place is different.
Okay.
Yes. All right. So I'm like, yo, I've been on it, and it's been
sure
good
Brandon
ever
liked
since.
hearing that.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm like, this place is different, and hence why I've been coming here ever since.
All right. So let's get into this Blanco and give it a try here.
So I poured you guys each a glass, and I have one for myself.
Nice.
Yep. And we'll do it neat. So
we're doing it. Yeah, that's right. We're doing it neat, and these are not chilled or anything.
These are not chilled. So if you smell it, you smell how clean it is.
Yeah.
It's like if you get one of these really
right.
strong,
It doesn't have that boozy smell.
Right. It's very clean, right?
So that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, and that's why I smell it. I usually smell the cap, or the bottle. Like I'll smell the cap on my head. Can I smell it? And just to see how strong it is. So
wow, that is super smooth. Yeah. Yeah. So my experience with tequila is the Daytona tequilas, right?
Yeah.
And so wow, that is because sipping whiskey. It's something that I've gotten into since I've met Brandon. So it's and COVID. So not a lot to do during COVID except sit around and sip whiskey. So
boom.
But this is great.
Yeah.
So these are not the kind of shots that you're gonna lick it, slam it, suck it, shoot the.
You're
shot
not gonna
down,
do
right?
shooters. You're not gonna waste this tequila in a margarita. This is gonna be your sipping tequila.
Right.
And what I learned down in Mexico is that, on a medical standpoint, that if you get good tequila, it can help lower your A1C, which is like your blood sugars. Yeah, A1C. If you're sipping good tequila, because the high content of sugars are just all natural, from the guy, not chemically enhanced. I'm a personal testament to that,
right?
Because diabetes runs in my family.
Quinn's in great shape, and it's because of tequila,
right?
It has nothing to do with him jogging up and down the road in front of the bar twice a day.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I see my A1C, and I'm like, yo, okay, I'll cut some stuff out, but I've been drinking tequila for the last 4 years, and I can see it medically for me. And I'm not saying it's not going to be for everybody, but for me, like my A1C has dropped significantly, and I'm like, yo, this is something that they talked about when I was in Mexico, right? Like you sip on tequila, and you get a good one, you're going to get that natural agave, the natural, not that chemically enhanced that gets sent over. So that's what I like about it. And
that's awesome.
Yeah,
and you've got the medical background to be able to do this. We never talked about what you do for a living, but
yeah, absolutely. So
talking about some of the tasting notes of this, as I've sat with it a little bit, this is incredibly clean. I mean, it's just a really, really clean tequila. But there's some cool minerality to it that if you really kind of let it sit and play with. The other thing that you mentioned was you don't want it to burn. And I really paid attention to that because I don't really notice the burning of it as much, I guess because we're drinking higher end spirits most of the time we're doing this. But you get that sort of warming sensation that's just kind of a tequila hug.
Yeah, exactly.
but so... I'm very interested in the more of those earth tones that we had talked about briefly, where there is some fruit forward here, but there's a lot of minerality and there's a lot of vegetal notes to it, and it's very, very good. I mean, this is a spectacular Blanco.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you see people drink, like do shots and they're doing, they get that face, right? Hence salt, lime,
right? Because they're doing the salt and lime to make that go away. Now this has got the usual liquor burn to it, just like if you were sipping whiskey. I mean, you're drinking alcohol. This is not like sipping water.
Right. No, not at all.
But it doesn't have the ugly burn.
Exactly.
Like the tequila hug.
Yeah.
I really like the
yeah.
Get your tequila hug. Come down to Stumptown Station.
Stumptown Station.
That might be a T-shirt. Get your tequila hug
for Cinco de Mayo. I'm telling you.
Yeah. All right. So then we've got Brandon's tequila. So I'm gonna, because this will take me half an hour to sip through that. So I'm just gonna sit that there for. Sit him down here. There we go. So I'm going to sit that there for when we're done recording, and then we'll go on to the next one. So, Brandon, what did you bring to class today?
So, using actually the same rules, it's interesting that we purchased tequila in the same way.
Okay.
So it's very, very funny because mine is also. So I'm doing Casamigos Añejo.
Okay.
So this is, everybody knows it as the George Clooney tequila.
Right.
And this has, it's funny because it's made in Jalisco, Mexico. It's also got a lot number to it. I mean,
Nice.
it's now, granted, the signature is fake because, it's got George Clooney's name on it, but.
Well, I'm sure the signature is real, just reprinted.
Right, yeah, there you
didn't
go.
sign
Yeah.
that
Right.
particular bottle, right?
But the other thing that I'm always looking for is just that 100% agave, right? So you want that you want it to say either 100% blue Weber agave or blue agave or whatever it is, because it's actually a control issue through tequila production. So you can't put that on there if it's not 100%. So that's where some of those blended tequilas, the mixtos and stuff that we had talked about, won't have that on there.
Gotcha.
Because they've been mixed with some sort of caramel coloring or an oak flavor or something like that.
So what is blue Weber agave?
It's the agave.
That's not the stove.
No.
Okay.
No. That's the agave that was in the pictures that we had shown. So,
Okay, all right.
So blue Weber agave is the agave that they use.
So that's what you want is the 100% agave or blue agave.
Yeah, blue agave, blue Weber agave, 100% day agave, whatever it is. But it's interesting because a lot of agave comes from two places, either the highlands or the lowlands. And here we'll pass these out here. Yeah,
just
we've
keep
got
keep going.
So there's highlands and lowlands, and it actually changes the taste of the tequila. So I was actually expecting, like the Casa Dragones that he had, I was actually expecting that to be more of a fruit forward. But it's probably, and I don't know this for sure, but I would imagine it's more of either a middle ground or a lowlands agave because it has those vegetal notes.
Okay.
Or I'm completely wrong. But the Casa...
That's all right. Nobody's here to correct you. So
right.
All right,
the Casamigos, what I love about this is the story behind this is really, really cool because it actually somewhat reflects what we did here at Stumptown. And it was a couple of buddies that got together that said, you know what, I want to make a tequila that I really, really enjoy. Mm-hmm. So Clooney and some of his friends get together and they said, well, we need to find somebody who will make tequila. So they find him in Mexico. We're going to make tequila. All right, great. They send it to him. No, this isn't what we wanted. Try again.
Right.
Try again. Over and over and over again. What ends up happening is they end up saying, hey, you can only make so much and ship so much out before you have to have like distilling permits and government contracts basically that say you're allowed to do this. And they said, well, let's do it. And they named it Casamigos, House of Friends.
Nice.
Because they wanted a tequila that they could really enjoy and put their name on, quite literally. So, yeah.
So this is the result of their research.
Yeah, so, yeah, this is
and we talked about the añejo being in the barrels, and so you can see a big difference between this one and Quinton's there. And I'll get some pictures of these. Yeah, we'll put up. So if you're watching the video, you can see those. But when you come into the bar or when you're, want to go watch the video or see the pictures, you'll be able to see that it's a darker color, not whiskey dark, but it's still a darker color.
Right, yeah, and you can get tequilas that are whiskey dark, but we'll give it a try and then we'll talk about the tasting notes here.
So you do the smell, it's just as clean too.
Yeah, and you can get those oak notes just from the smell of it. And we're for the people who aren't watching us, we're actually tasting these out of Glencairn glasses, specifically for the tasting. So if you're ever tasting liquor or whatever, get a good Glencairn glass because it's actually designed. The tulip shape is actually designed to push the vapors towards your nose.
Oh, so
especially while you're drinking.
Smelling, okay.
Yeah, because again, we've talked about this before. You have to use all five senses when you're doing something like this. So yeah.
No, and that's nice. And I don't have the refined palate that you two guys have got, but I swear I can get the little hint of whiskey going on in here.
Yeah, and it's that oak flavor there. I enjoy this because in tasting notes, vanilla is one of my favorite flavors. And this is heavy vanilla. I mean, it's the thing that really kind of smacks you in the face is the vanilla flavor. Now, this company had some production issues over 2020 with all that was going on, where there's glass shortages and bottle shortages and all that. But we're lucky enough to still be able to get this one here in the United States. But it is obviously the same shortage issues that Quinton was talking about, because it does take 7 years to age this agave.
Sure.
And 5 to 7, but yeah, it's just it's a wild process. But yeah, I think this is absolutely one of my favorites.
And that's a good one too. And you can get this one, and this is also just served neat, not chilled or anything. Okay.
Yeah. Now with this one, we were talking about ways to use tequila. I actually use this because of the whiskey notes. I actually will use this in an old fashioned as well. We call it an Antica, which is old fashioned. And it's very, very good. So you can match this.
So
with
you can get the tequila old fashioned.
Yeah, it's absolutely spectacular. It's been on our menu a couple of times. It comes on and off, usually more towards the summer months because it is it's a tequila
You know what?
drink.
I know a guy, and maybe we can put it on the menu for Cinco de Mayo.
We can find a way.
The
Yeah.
Cinco de Mayo, we'll have some special menu items that we've talked about anyway. So can we add that on the menu?
Absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely,
cool.
absolutely.
So there, you heard it here first. The tequila old fashioned, the Antica.
The Antica, yeah.
All right. So the Antica will be on the menu for one day only.
Yeah, it's a fantastic cocktail. It's absolutely
I can't wait to try that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very,
so I'm
very
going to
good.
sit this over here with the tequila that I'm going to be hammering when this thing is over. So so we had yours, which is the Blanco, and then we had yours, which is the Añejo. So I got one too. I went and
I'm
took the bottle.
excited to see
Yeah. So I went and got the biggest damn bottle of tequila I could find at the bar. This thing is the size of a freaking watermelon.
A 1.75 liter bottle.
Is it?
Yeah, right there.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah,
Okay.
1.75.
Yeah, so this is the one that don't fit the paper bag. And and it's got a cool label. And I know it's a Reposado, which we talked about earlier, right? So I can be taught. This is the one in the middle, in between the Añejo and the Blanco, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. We have reached the end of my knowledge. Who wants to bail me out?
So there's a couple of things on here that we've actually already talked about. If you look at the label, there's 100% pure agave,
Oh,
which is a good thing.
Okay.
There's also where it's made, and it's obviously it's a made in Mexico product.
right?
So the cool thing about this particular one is that number one, the label does stand out, and the reason why the label stands out is because when the creator picked Espolon when he started it, he actually picked an artist that was representative of Mexico, and his name escapes me. It's Jose Guadalupe something, and I can't remember his last name, but. It's all about, the entire label is all about Mexican culture. So they've got the rooster on there, which is an important bird in Mexico, and the stylings of all that with the masks.
It's a very cool label.
Yeah.
I would have this poster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a very cool thing. And so what Espolon sort of stands for is they stand about adhering to tradition without being bound by it, which I think is such a cool way to do that, because it's about knowing that I can do this very, very well, but I don't have to do it in the oldest possible style. You know, I can learn, standing on the shoulders of giants, I guess. I can learn from the people who came before me and refine the process and still put out something that's absolutely spectacular.
Okay. And then if you're watching on YouTube, we just put a picture up too of the of this cool label. Or at least the best picture I can get of it.
Yeah.
So we'll have that. Okay, so we've got 3 of these. So
Excellent.
let's pass those around, and I'm gonna put my jug of booze.
I like that you picked the biggest bottle.
The biggest bottle, baby.
It actually happens to be a fantastic addition
Which
to our
tequila
tasting.
do I want? Which tequila do I want? My God, look at that thing! Yeah, it's huge. So then the thing I wanted to compare on this one is if we put all 3 together, is the Reposado darker than the Blanco, like obvious? If we set all 3 of them out there and we take a picture of that, or we show that up there, you can see. I mean, it's a little bit of a difference, but the Añejo has a real obvious color difference, right?
Oh, absolutely. You can see, as far as like the aging process, fresh out.
Right.
Right. And then you have 1 to 3 years for the Repo, and then you have 3 to 5 years on the Añejo.
So yeah, you can actually
where
see the
you can
aging
see
when you
the
put them
aging.
together like that.
Yes, in the color you can see that's that process.
Right.
And that's what's
That's
what makes it great. And,
Give me my drink back. All right. So then we take and it's the same thing. You smell, and it's that clean smell. It doesn't smell boozy. Is that common across all of your good tequilas? That, when you get a tequila and you smell it and it smells like super boozy, that's not going to be a good one?
That's not going to be a good one for sure. And that's one of the things I look back, smell, and I'm like, you know what? Let me look. Because I'll try it, but then it's like I'll research more. It's not just the smell, but I'm looking at the bottle where it's just 100% agave.
Yeah.
But it's like but I'll try it to see where it's going to go with it.
Okay. See, I've always seen people like doing the smells and doing the putting the pinky out and all that kind of crap, and I'm like, what are you doing? Yeah, you're full of shit, right? So, but it actually is something that that's the thing that you're looking for. So if you've never tried that, actually try that next time when you grab you a shot of tequila, or even with whiskey. Is it similar? you know, with whiskey when you're smelling it, there's certain things, and we'll do this in the whiskey episode.
Yeah, yeah.
Just
And it's absolutely the same. I mean, it really is, again, going back to the five senses of drinking, really. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're going to find all those little bits and bobs as you go through, because you're looking for certain notes that you enjoy.
Right.
And, you know, in our whiskey episode, we'll talk a little more about how to find your perfect whiskey, because I have a great system for that. But it's such an interesting process that you go through when you really put effort towards tasting something like this. You know, we've talked about the visuals behind it, where the aging process obviously changes the color.
Gotcha.
The smells, the clean smells. This one, as far as tasting notes, actually is really interesting to me, because this one is very, very fruity. So there's a lot of really soft flavors to this one. So you catch things that are so different than the other two, and you don't get, even though this is a reposado, you don't get a lot of oak taste out of this. You don't get a lot of barrel flavor out of this. So yeah, it's very good.
It's really smooth. And the other thing I noticed about the fancy tasting, besides the smelling that we learned today, is also hold it in your mouth for a minute, and you'll be able to taste it better instead of just down the hatch.
Yeah. So one of the tasting things that they tell you is this is part of the they being, I don't know, the big tasting company.
I'm going to go with YouTube.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Is when you take a sip of anything, whatever it is that you're trying to taste.
Right.
Bring a little air into your mouth as well. That's why you see the real sommeliers and all the wine tasters doing that. Is because what happens is when liquor is exposed to air, it actually will help enhance the flavor. So all of that is
So just breathe in a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit of air.
Drown.
Yeah, don't. Yeah. At separate times. Try that. But what it does is it helps kind of bloom the flavors again. Same thing with adding a couple of drops of water or something like that. You're kind of blooming the flavor. So yeah, it's an interesting thing.
That is okay. I learned something new. And I kind of dig it. All right,
Yeah, it makes
try that at
big
home.
difference.
Breathe in and then drink.
Right. And then right, exactly.
All right, cool. Hey, Quinton, appreciate you, man. Thank you for coming on.
It was awesome. Great job.
Yeah. And we're gonna do our one last little bit before we go, and we actually got some questions in, so we're going to do a little Q&A with Brandon here to close out the podcast. So we did get a couple of questions in. If you want to send us some questions, you can send it to thebigbooth at stumptownstation.com, thebigbooth at stumptownstation.com, or you can just stop by the bar. Ask Brandon if you see us, write something down, give it to one of the bartenders, and for the bartenders, they can write something down and give it to us. I mean, that's totally fine.
What the interesting part about this is that more often than not, I don't actually get to see any of these questions.
That's right. So they need to give it to me.
Yeah. So I always have a little anxiety about this particular part of the episode.
Right, because you don't know what's coming.
Yeah. The good part is that we always do it at the end, so I've always had a little anxiety.
I always had a little bit of firewater.
Tequila hug.
All right. So here's the and we kind of hit on this one. This is kind of cool. So Brent from Atlanta, he goes, "What are the key things to look for when I walk into the liquor store? How do I pick out a good one?" So we just did that with tequila. Are there similar things that you're looking for? And I'm assuming it's going to be different for every liquor, and whether I'm looking for a vodka or a whiskey or a rum. There are specific things that you would look for. Is this question, I may be killing this question, is this question so complicated and so different for each type of liquor?
No, it's really not. I think you can make this a general statement, and there's some interesting points about how liquor stores are set up, and we're going to talk in our vodka episode. We're going to talk about Grey Goose, which is a fascinating story about how liquor kind of can transform itself without doing anything different,
right?
And the power of marketing. But the number one thing that you can do if you're trying to find a good bottle in a liquor store, number one is if you're going to put that effort forward, do your research. So whatever it is that you're going for, number one, I would say research should comprise of what is it that you like? That's going to be the number one thing, as we've said all the time. My buddy Chris down at the Loyalist Market here in Matthews says the best palate in the world is the one you own, and I absolutely love that. So find out what you like. So what is it that you're looking for? Then start finding things that are similar to that are made in a similar style, that have similar ingredients, whatever that might be. And I think it gets really complex when you start looking into really anything, but whiskeys and bourbons, because, I like this mash bill, and I like this much rye, and I like this much corn, and it can get really complex. So yes, you can kill the question doing that, but number one is do your research. Find out what you like, find out the brands. Remember, folks, it's air, then tequila.
I just went to go ask a question, but I had a little bit of tequila left. Wow. So another idea you might want to do is come into the bar. whether it's our bar, whether it's somewhere else that's got great tequilas or great whiskeys or whatever, and then just order, get you a shot, neat, and try it, and talk to the bartenders and find out what you can, what you want to learn. So you can kind of figure out what you like.
And that's sort of my second step is rely on your experts, right? So number one is going to be do your research. Number two, rely on your experts. So come into your local bar. One of the things that I thought it was fantastic is Quinton said, "Oh, I came in here and realized this place is different," which I absolutely loved that. That's a great little tagline. Because I did want to stand out in whatever category it is that you enjoy. Gin, is something that I personally am not a huge gin drinker, but I have come to love gin because it's such an interesting history and story, which, why don't we do an episode on it?
Sure.
But I think that there's just so many ways where people say, "Oh my God, I hate gin. Oh my God, I hate tequila. Oh my God, I can't drink X because of college or Daytona Beach."
And we have had that exact conversation because I'm going, dude, I just don't like gin. Every time I've tried gin, it's been horrible. And your answer has always been, you haven't tried the right gin.
Yeah, you haven't let me pour gin for you.
So maybe that, okay. So again, okay, we'll do a gin.
That's a great example of rely on your experts.
Right.
So if there's somebody out there who says, "Oh, I actually know a lot about this, and this is what's important to me when I go shopping for gin," find out what's in there that you enjoy.
Right.
That you say, "Oh, well, okay, I don't really care about, fruit forward, or I don't care about this, or I don't care, but I do care about that it's, now I care about that it's made in Mexico. I do care that it's made out of pure agave.
Right.
I do care that it doesn't burn, that I don't have a wicked hangover.
That it doesn't smell boozy.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
So now all of a sudden you watch something as credible and, as the Big Booth with Stumptown Station, and now you know. So, so that's my answer to that. I think those are the two easiest things that you can do. Then once you get in there, don't be afraid of what you're looking at. So a lot of people get in there and they get a little nervous, like, "Oh, people are going to think I have no idea what I'm doing." Number one, most people don't care what you're doing.
Right.
Number two, take your time. I mean, you're there to make your purchase for yourself or your friends or whatever it is. And then, the final step of this is share it. Everything I always say when it comes to all of this is good liquor is meant to be shared over stories. I mean, the reason why tap existed, and that's a whole nother thing, but business and friendships and all of this stuff starts in bars and taverns.
Sure.
So share the things that you purchased, get feedback from other folks, and find out what it is that you like.
That is a great answer. All right. So we'll get into the second question, and we've had a few technical difficulties. If you're watching on YouTube, you notice we're down to one camera. You may have noticed a couple of cutouts because tequila and electrical equipment just doesn't work well sometimes. I mean, be careful when you're getting into this tequila thing. So our second question is Jake from San Diego wants to know tips on pairing liquors with food. So we know we can pair wines with food, right? Red wine and meat, and white wine and fish.
Yeah.
Okay. And what goes with chicken?
All of it.
Everything
goes.
goes.
Yeah.
So does the same thing work with liquors, right? So let's say Jake's making dinner for his girl, and he wants to go and find a good liquor to go with whatever he's going to make that night.
Yeah, and so we've always sort of geared this towards like the basics of starting whatever this is that you're trying to do, right? So we'll talk about the basics of pairing liquor with food, and I always say you got to try and find your heavy flavors and your light flavors. So when you think about red wine, it's those big, bold flavors that really stand out, that can really overpower some smaller flavors or softer flavors that come with fish or flaky white fish and that kind of stuff. Well, red wine will just step all over it.
Right.
So you do the same thing with your tequilas, your whiskeys, your vodkas, whatever it is. And what I like to do personally is I always equate our tasting notes back to candies. Because wine tastings are usually, like we had said, sandals and boots and dirt.
Sure.
Whereas candies are a lot more fun, butterscotch and vanillas and Slim Jims and all. That's not candy, but so anyway,
Slim Jims can be candy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So then, like your añejo that you had that has the vanilla notes.
Yeah, it's a nice vanilla note.
Okay.
That is a bolder thing. That's a bolder tequila, so it could stand up to something. And tequila goes great with tacos for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That was going to go with that one.
Yeah. So, but you can actually pair these things by saying, okay, there are similar flavors that I like, and then start, kind of working backwards. Maybe start with desserts and start there and say, okay, well, this has flavors that are similar or even a little dissimilar. Like you could do chocolates and vanillas. You could do things like that, nice little lava cake with this añejo. I mean, that stuff goes really well.
I smell an episode. And what we should do is bring in a chef.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then bring in, somebody like bring in Quinton with the tequila.
Yeah.
And then we'll have Quinton and a chef from somewhere, and then have them do pairings. So
Yeah,
we're
and
gonna
it'll be
try
fun
this tequila
because
with that.
I think it'll be fun because pretty soon this episode is just going to be videos of us drinking and eating, and we won't even have to say anything. It'll just be
Right.
you and I sitting here drinking and eating.
And it'll be just as entertaining as TikTok.
Yeah, right, exactly.
yeah.
And there might be a reason why Quentin runs up and down the sidewalk twice a day and looks like him, and we're going to be drinking and eating, and we look like us.
I know. And because we sit around and drink and eat, we have done zero planning for the next episode because we record these weeks ahead of time. So we have no plans for the next episode. We know it's going to be getting on to Memorial Day, but we still got a few things to work out. Right? I'd like to do the distillery. We'd like to do a musician. Maybe we'll do one of these pairings. I don't know. We're going to see what works out because we have a lot of logistics going on. So make sure you follow us. On Facebook, Instagram, follow the Stumptown Station up there, email us, and we can be able to let you know what's coming. But the next episode will be coming up in a couple of weeks. Quentin, again, I appreciate you being on. Brandon, awesome as always. Now we're going to sit around and finish our tequila. And we'll see you next time on The Big Booth by Stumptown Station. Cheers.
Cheers,
guys.